Welcome back to Moon. It's Britten, and I'm excited to be connected back to you in this space. I guess it's been a couple weeks since I've recorded anything for Moon, and quite a lot has happened. As you may or may not know, I launched a totally new thing into the world in this past few months. Um, yeah, Living Emergence was a dream. It was a vision. And then it became a real place on planet Earth where we come together and where you are able to find a whole lot of resources to help you navigate in your pathway as a human being on planet Earth. We have 90 founding members so far, and I couldn't be more thrilled with how it went. Yeah, that was a big one. um, I'm still getting used to the space since I moved my home. I moved out of Teachable into this totally new platform, and I'm getting used to it and feeling my way through it and really enjoying being on the other side of that move, and proud about how it all went down. Yeah, I really lit the fires at the altar and served it. And I served it. And many answered the call. Many, many human beings caught the scent. They caught the scent of the burning of what I was burning, and came and have met me inside, and it feels really potent inside the space. Folks are sharing that they feel like they're on a very new timeline now, and that they are feeling the impacts of their yes, and of how this space is going to be of deep support to them in what they're doing. It's very sovereign in there. I'm not surprised, but I have a new team that's constellated over the last few months, and I have these wonderful human beings that are supporting me behind the scenes in being able to hold this much bigger, much more ambitious, vast project. And they have been on many teams for community spaces like this over the years. And they tell me how impressive this space is from their perspective, especially the maturity and the sovereignty and the kind of glow of the humans that are inside. So shocking, not shocking, because I have always felt so amazed by the people who come to the things that I create. So I'm been holding a lot of gratitude the last couple months for all of those who've said yes, many of whom have been in my world for years. They've done all the classes in the resource library. Like, they're here for the conversations that they know will be happening, and they're here for the new work that will be emerging through me inside the space, knowing that it's more fun and it's more cost effective to be a member than to pay for things as they show up. But then there are many in this space who've only found me in the last year. Many are at the beginning of being at the crossroads, being at a crossroads in their lives, moving through deep change, really unraveling who they are, who they thought they were, and in that liminal space of becoming, and really wanting support in anchoring into skill sets and into community frequencies that can help them become more comfortable with mystery. Many have found their way to my voice who have, like, astrology has just come in the last year, and there's a way that I speak it that is deeply meaningful to them. And so this is really powerful to me because the people in this community that have been with me for years, like, they initially came as people at the crossroads, wondering if my approach to astrology could anchor them through what they were going through. And it has. And that's why they're still hanging around, because it's so fun to keep going. And so I'm really proud to have a space that can offer so much to different kinds of people at different places in their lives. And we're doing it. We're fucking doing it. So the conversation you're going to be hearing today is between me and Suprasensory Shahir, who's been on Moon to Moon twice before. Shahir was a 13th reader in the Magician's Table last spring. Shahir is someone who holds a lot of space for me through recorded readings. And I've known Shahir since, I think, 2020, when they joined Soft Strength, which is the old iteration of what is now Moon to Moon, the class, which is an entire class inside of Living Emergence in the resource library. So I've known Shahir a long time. I deeply respect them, and they are in Living Emergence with all of us. And they're going to be leading the very first member-led workshop, which is something that I want to be having happen all the time. As we go, we'll just kind of build that resource out. This will be the first one, and it's going to be on the topic of omens. Divination and Omens. And I'm really, really excited about this because I think the word omen can bring up a lot of feelings and a lot of fears and a lot of even humor. It can bring up resistance and, a lot of as what astrology is omens. So let's build a relationship to this word and build a way of talking about, encountering, relating to, growing fluency, growing self-trust with being a person who relates to omens. And whether you are a beginner student of astrology or whether you are a practicing astrologer, this is an important topic. So our conversation today is going to be on living emergence as a relationship to divination and to omens. And then on Sunday, December 14th, Sunday, December 14th in the evening in the Americas, we are going to be having our workshop with Suprasensory Shahir called Oh My Omens. So, Living Emergence is going to be reopening this month. We're going to be having Unshaming Your Chart that begins December 17th. Just like last year, we began with a 2-hour initiation in December, and then I unlock the pre-recorded library of Unshaming the Signs and Unshaming the Houses that I made just for this class. This is distinct from my workshops and podcast episodes. And so then we meet again starting January 7 more times. And we do breakout groups, and it's super fun and it's super impactful. And it was a smash hit last winter in its first iteration. So we're doing it inside of Living Emergence. It really works as a community course. However, I've decided I'm going to make it possible for you to just sign up for Unshaming Your Chart at its market price of $400. That's what it cost last year. Or you can join Living Emergence for $95 a month. And I'll let you do the math there. It's highly recommended that you join Living Emergence so that you can be part of the community conversations coming from the classroom, because you'll see when you're in there that as much as it's a personal experience, it's also a collective experience. However, if you really don't want to be part of a subscription model investment, you have the option of getting it like people got it last year. So we're starting December 17th. If you join before then, you can join in this workshop with Shahir on December 14th on Oh My Omens. So the links for everything will be below. And we'll look forward to welcoming you into Living Emergence, into Unshaming Your Chart, and into Oh My Omens. So let me read Shahir's bio for you in case you don't know Shahir. Suprasensory Shahir, he, is a love devotee mystic who shows up as an astrologer of the moment and diviner of the future. They embrace the spiritual tools of tarot, astrology, and spirit guide connections to help people embrace a magical life. Shahir is a queer Muslim from Southeast Asia who aligns themselves with Sufism, a mystical and inward focused dimension of Islam. And then in the show notes, you'll see links for consultations with Shahir, their writings, their YouTube, and their Instagram. As I've shared, and you'll hear me share throughout the episode, I love readings from Shahir. I turn to Shahir for my own divinations. I turn to Shahir for my prophecies and omens. This is a person I deeply trust in their craft and their devotions, which is why I asked them to come be a 13th reader in my community last year when the theme for TMT was the devotion that's driving you. So, looking forward now to sharing this conversation with you on divination and on omens and how they relate to the invitation of living emergence. Enjoy. Welcome back to Moon, Shahir.
Hi, Britten.
I always love to spend time with you.
I know, and this is like my third time here, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Third
let's
time's the
see.
charm.
Unshaming the third house.
Yeah.
And then the mystics circle,
Yeah, the mystical
the
circle.
mystical circle. Yeah. Yeah. Well, welcome back again. We're going to be having a conversation that in this series that I'm doing on living emergence, which we started talking about back in, I guess, October, maybe is when we first were saying, like, yeah, we'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then more recently, it felt important to get this on the day, get this on the calendar.
Yeah,
Um, I just had this feeling like we were going to go to some pretty cool places on this topic together. So here we
I'm
are in
excited.
Sag season under an Aquarius moon. All right. I guess I want to begin with for you, what comes up when you feel into the idea of living emergence?
Yeah, I was like meditating on that earlier as well. And I was really thinking about there's a sense of like action. there's a sense of aligned kind of action that one does that feels like sort of like that calls forth like the spirit, like, because I was like really feeling this energy of like the living, like, it's almost like something becoming alive, right? And so
Yes.
yeah, and so that was like the one thing that was like really like gravitating to it. And I was like really, yeah, the minute even the minute when I heard you say that word, when you were introducing the idea in a larger kind of like shout out and announcement kind of thing, I was really calling that was kind of like the energy that I was like receiving from that. It's like there's something that is like that calls forth your spirit in a way.
Oh my gosh. For you, how do you describe the spirit?
Oh, yeah, I think, yeah, I like there for me it kind of just like we're thinking about sort of like there is this alignment between like the mind, the soul, the heart, and everything, right? And that can be regarded as like the spirit sense or the essence of it. Um, and that for me that is the spirit, kind of the alignment of everything that sort of when they're in sort of like this harmonious conversation with each other.
Mm. So aligned action that calls forth the spirit. And your use of that word action is reminding me of one of the last readings you gave me. I
Mm.
had like death reversed and the hangman, among other like very strong action cards.
Wow.
And you said something like, what if like surrender is part of the action or something like this? Like
Mm.
that it surrender is part of the process of action. I wish I could remember your exact wording, and I don't expect you to because I know when we're in a reading, like things just come out. But but my point is, um, I love how like I do think action can mean a lot of things um, that have something to do with like being attuned to what's true for us in the present moment. I don't know. Does that
Hmm.
resonate?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, and even at timing of this recording, when you were like suggesting it, I was like, oh yeah, you can do it. This like next week was pretty like empty for me to like we can even do it. And I was like checking the chart, and I just realized in the skies right now, like, I mean, Mercury and Venus is having a contact. But more importantly, sort of like Mercury is also like we just had the retrograde, right? We're still in the retrograde, but we just had the Kazemi moment, and now Mercury is kind of like emerging from the beams of the sun. So it's kind of like the helical rising of Mercury. So Mercury is actually becoming visible, like especially for your morning, not yet my morning. My morning, I'm going to see it tomorrow. So yeah, the Mercury is actually rising pre-dawn kind of like vibe. So um, yeah, like there's something there about like Mercury the messenger as being kind of like the omens, like one of those kind of like messenger gods, messenger of divinity kind of idea that sort of like bring forth this, yeah, like message. And we're recording a podcast right now. Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Bringing in Mercury here. Living emergence as somehow connected to a rising message.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Hmm. Um, I'm just writing this down. I'm just going to say, instead of rising message, I'm going to say message rising.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. And like the visibility too, right? There's something about like the Mercury right now is literally like becoming visible. So it's no longer obscured by like, the rays of the sun kind of idea. So there's just also like that message becoming visible, that brilliance of a particular planet or a star, one of the wandering stars to like becoming more visible. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. So Mercury, it feels like a great way to begin to lean towards the topic we had thought about exploring together around living emergence, which is divination and the idea of omens. So,
Mm.
would you say that Mercury, I mean, Mercury, how does Mercury relate to divination?
Oh wow. I mean, like for me, Mercury is kind of like the lord of divination in itself. It's like everything has to be translated through the mercurial kind of like thinking, and it is the most adaptable kind of like planet, and that sort of like governs almost a lot of different things. And it's also kind of like the idea that Mercury, and we're, if you're thinking about the sun as like part of the conversation of the spirit, and Mercury is also always kind of like the closest planet to the sun by kind of like the solar system wise. So it's kind of like there's so this part of this storytelling of like, yeah, Mercury is the diviner, the magician itself, in a way for the spirit, for the sun. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And you have Mercury and Pisces like I do, right?
Yeah, yes, I do.
What degree is that at?
It's around 11, 12. Yeah, between that.
11, 12. So pretty close to my son at 13.
Yeah, very close. Yeah.
Yay. Well, yeah, so I'm very excited to explore your thoughts on the role of divination in emergence, living emergence, action that calls forth the spirit.
Yeah. I feel like this is like kind of like, honestly, it's not controversial, but like it's almost as if we make decisions from like omens and divination. I was really thinking about that through the lens of like living emergence in a way. Um, and I'm sort of like trying to think about like a moment when yeah, this is where like this season comes in. Like, let me tell a story about like I how I went to New York through this sort of like omen thing. And so obviously I was like applying for grad school back in 2019. And I was like considering either there are a few places I applied to because I can send my scores there just because kind of thing. And then I got into two places. I got into Chicago and New York. Like it's either one of the colleges there. And I remember this sort of like I was really like not say undecided. I was pretty undecided. I was like pretty much like I was like, oh my God, like I love them both equally. Like I was like, I have no like partial to any one of it even, right? Um and both of them were offering me like around the same amount of like a partial fellowship, scholarship, like tuition reduction kind of thing. So I was like, cost wise is going to be about the same. So I did me being in Chicago or me being in New York, which for me, like both of those places were really exciting for me. Like I have no kind of like true preference, I would say. Like I was truly like ambivalent. It was like one of my life uh, process where I felt truly ambivalent about something. And I was like, I'm very neutral about this. Like, why can't one of them give me like exceedingly more scholarship so that like that would be the immediate logical thing for me to choose, right? Um, and then and all it took me was like a dream divination. It was pretty much like I went to sleep, right? I went to sleep, and I had a dream that. So this is like kind of like there is some background story to it in a way, but I was basically in Brooklyn Museum, and I had that
Wow.
yeah, and then like somehow like I saw Basquiat, like I don't know why,
Yes. You're like, oh, definitely New York.
definitely wrong, and like it was very like there's something intimate, very quite erotic in a way. That's very arts. Like it was like one of those dreams where you're like, what is going on in a way? But then I woke up immediately. I was like. oh, I have to go to New York, you know? And so that was kind of like one of those things which for me felt really true to my life where like, yeah, like I made choices from an omen I got from a dream.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's how I have the dog I have right now, just to share on
Uh-huh.
dream divination, dream moments. I had a dream about having a dog that looked like a wolf. And
Mm.
then the same day, my boyfriend got a call from a friend saying, there's this loose dog. It looks like a wolf. I think it wants to be adopted. Y'all need a dog? And at the moment, I wasn't quite ready, but it was like this, it felt like the universe confirming the dream. And so then when
Yes.
I was ready, I saw this part husky dog at a shelter. And so then I meditated with the spirit of my last dog. And
Mm-hmm.
because let me tell you, this puppy was like so wild. I mean, sitting in the room with him, it was like, I don't think that I want this dog. It's too
No, I
wild. He's
remember.
like
I
nipping
remember.
at my shoes and biting everyone's ankles. And it was like, oh my gosh, this can't be right. But then Buddy showed me this picture of him all regal and older and mature. And then we got him. And he became that very quickly with the warmth of love. Like he became
Mm.
a mature, landed being from being seen as growing into that. That was
Yeah.
from the picture of the you know what I mean? It was so
Exactly,
cool. But
exactly. It's
anyway,
almost like a this prophetic dream that like of the becoming of the puppy.
yes, this becoming that divination. Um, what would be the verb there? Like opens the door for you to be able to see that what's possible. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that you brought in dreams because I was thinking about astrology and the tarot, but like, yeah, there's so many different forms of divination that one could consider for this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, like I think the practice of dreams is one of those. I feel like it is. I do feel that I think one hand you can't really control it in a way, and sometimes you just have it, right? And I think that is such a liminal and beautiful way of like um calling in the omens because in a way that's sort of like looking at the astrology patterns, the astral omens, the tarot omens, we kind of like conjure up this sort of like images into our lives, which sort of like we're really working with that omen. But like with dreams, they are kind of like, oh, they just arrive at you, right? This
Yeah.
is like, and then it comes to, when you were talking about like the revelation part, right? This part of that sort of like process of like revelation um into the something inner in your life that sort of like dream omens conjures up that is very intimate and special. Yeah.
Yeah, you're bringing up something that we've been talking about in Living Emergence, which is like the relationship between reveal and revelation. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like the dream reveals, like you didn't, it just came and it like showed you something without
Mhm.
you um kind of controlling it or like engineering it. And then the revelation can come from, for me, it often comes from an immediate other synchronicity that
Mhm.
validates the original omen. Does that
Yeah.
feel true for you? Like sometimes I feel like I get a thing and I'm like, huh, okay, holding it. And then another thing will come in to be like, yes. And now we're off. And like it's starting to flower what the divination or what the omen is trying to tell me or how it's directing me. Does that feel true for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. I think one thing that came about for me with that is that last year I went to visit in London, and I went to the V&A Museum with really one of my best friends, Andrina, and I was like walking around and I saw like the Three Graces sort of souvenir, like the book. It's just like a notebook, like an empty notebook, and I love collecting notebooks, right? It's one of those like Mercury part of me, like I love like collecting like empty notebooks. And I was like, I had it and I was like, you know what? Like, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like have this. This looks really nice. This is really calling towards me. Sometimes, these are kind of like the omens that we get from like random purchases, I would feel, but it feels so aligned in a way. Like then it almost like holds a greater importance other than like other purchases, I guess. Right. And so I bought it, and then throughout the whole year, I think I just forgot about it. I was just like, okay, like, um, and then suddenly early this year, I forgot when it was, but I think it was a Taurus season or something like that, or even Gemini. I think it's Taurus, before Taurus season. Um, and suddenly I was in a Twitter space, X sort of like space, and while I was still active there, and I think Katosh, this person was like hosting it, and suddenly um they were talking about the Tree of Cups, and they were talking about the Three Graces. And that day, I actually pulled the Tree of Cups as one of my card of the day. And I
Yes.
was like, so this is where like sometimes with like collecting omens, as you say, like you're just holding it, but sometimes it also get lost, right? So it's just like in my room, like in a pile somewhere at the
It's
corner.
insistent.
And then suddenly I was just like, I was just like about to sleep because, sometimes the timing and stuff, just like listening to them as like a radio kind of thing, right? Just like, oh, listening to transmission, people are talking. I was already speaking on something, the topic earlier, and then the topic sort of just like goes in multiple direction. But then suddenly someone was talking about, I think it was Katosh, he was talking about the Three Graces. And then I was like, suddenly it clicks to me. I was like, oh wow, like I need to like use that notebook I have on the Three Graces. I was like, and I was waiting for that Tree of Cups. I was like, huh, what does that Tree of Cups mean? Like, there's nothing throughout that day that was like kind of like perfectly encapsulates that Tree of Cups, right? But then that moment in that Twitter space was literally it. In that conversation, I was like, oh my God, this is where someone is actually exchanging with me some sort of like this information, intuition, kind of like downloads that I am benefiting from. And for them, in their from their perspective, they're just sharing a knowledge, right? But then for me, I was like, oh my God, I need to start to use that notebook as something that quite is pivotal. So it's kind of like so I do have like a lot of different notebooks that I use for different reasons. And then that became one of the most important notebook for me. So yeah, so this is like part of it. The three pieces.
Oh,
Yeah. So
gorgeous.
it's one of those things where like sometimes it's sort of like even when you're thinking about omens and it keeps on hitting, and when it hits at the right time, and then suddenly you kind of like you pick up what you're meant to pick up about those omens, right? um and this is where like the different forms of things come to my mind, where like when I was buying the notebook, I wasn't like, I was just like, I just want to collect a notebook and this looks very pretty, and like it's the Three Graces, I love it. And then I just like had it, and then it was just on the table on the side table somewhere, like amidst all other books I have. And then suddenly that particular moment when I pulled the Three of Cups as a card of the day, and I already went through the whole day of just like, all right, I guess the Three of Cups is like a general thing or something like that, right? I didn't dwell too much into it. But then when that moment hits, I was like, oh, okay. Like I need to use
Yes.
it for something important. Yeah.
Yeah, just something that's really powerful for me thinking on this topic is receiving a divinatory reading full of omens, like your prophecy portal at the beginning of the new year, which this is my second year living into that.
Yeah.
And it's like it works different directions because, on the one hand, it, like if the card and your pictures that you see are kind of like an energy calling to me, I can choose to like enter that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's
Hmm.
like the aligned action is I'm my spirit is being called forth into this.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and then thus it happens so, but
Yeah.
but then there's like another direction where I'll listen to it like way later and I have forgotten. And then you start to speak about things. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize like this helps anchor what I've been going through. And I had forgotten, like I had
Yeah.
forgotten
Yeah.
consciously. And now this is like helping me understand how this is the circulating energy that I'm anchored in right now. And so it's like whether consciously or unconsciously, there's some kind of spirit bridge to the prophecy, it feels like.
Hmm.
And to me, it works because I trust your relationship to your channel. Like if right, like that's I think the key to the connection, between
Yeah.
the spirit and the prophecy is that your
Yeah.
trust in the person delivering it. Does that feel
Yeah,
true?
that's true. Yeah, no, that is very, very true. And I would, yeah, it's kind of like the things you're receiving, it's like it's no longer complete in a way, or it's meant to kind of like inspire something else. And I think that is also like part of the surprise, of omens too, right? They can be very, so this is where like there's a type of omens which can be very literal in terms of its imagery, and things like that. But then some of them are a bit more obscure in a way, but it's meant to kind of like give you like ask you to connect the dots, or like in hindsight kind of way, or like when you listen again or you revisit it, right? It actually was like, oh wow, like this is something completely different but also very much the same, kind of idea. It meant to kind of like connect the bridges as you were talking about, for sure. Yeah, like I think there are multiple moments when we feel like that, for sure. Like, and I remember there was a time when like, sometimes we think about one thing and then it turns out it's not that thing, but it's something else. But like that that first thing, or what we thought about, was still helpful, right? In terms of like connect us to whatever the major thing is, right? Like part of the quest of like discovering omens. It sometimes feels like you are on this sort of like quest of like, okay, like is this kind of like part of it? Like let me kind of like feel it out, like put some actions into it. And then the universe will sort of like, and whatever your spirit team, and kind of like confirms it even more, or even kind of like, you know, giving nothing as an answer for you to kind of like sit with it as well, right? And so I think we go through process, which varies from person to person, obviously. But then it's also still exciting because I think it's kind of like that natural rhythm of um truly understanding yourself in a way too, of like truly understanding your own processes, and perhaps kind of like know, like having this deeper knowing that it's reliable, and it is part of your internal compass that will lead you to the truth, or to the inner truth of who you are, and parts of your path. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like sometimes like we don't know where we're getting to, we're just where we are. So like sometimes the omen has to take us over to the right, because even though we're going to go over to the left, like we had to make a turn around something first, like
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's got to take us to the next appropriate doorway in order for us to get to that later doorway, which we can't even fathom in the present moment. Um, yeah, another wild one is that when I was picking the election I asked Kira Ryberg to help me pick the
Oh my
elections
God,
for the
amazing.
soft
Yeah.
and public launch of Living Emergence. And from the way I talked about it, she was like, this really feels like first decan of Sagittarius. Like I'm feeling Mercury and Sagittarius, like for the energy of this. So in the public launch, which was in November,
Hmm.
she explained like that it was perfect that Mercury, even though Mercury is in detriment, that there's something really questy about that first decan of Sagittarius. And she was excited that Mercury was there. And I was like, well, guess what my card for November was from Shahir, Eight of Wands.
Oh my God. I mean, I am a first decan Sat rising too, so yeah.
Oh, that's your Sag rising. Oh my God. I love
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So that's sort of like amazing reflection of like someone else is confirming too, right?
Yes.
Like from the multiple sources of divination in a way, or like someone's just like suggesting it by just like listening to what you describe.
Yes. Same as you had given me a reading in like the spring, and your themes were about moving the home. And you're like, I don't know if
Hmm.
you're moving though, because I don't feel like you're moving.
I
But
know, I know.
also
I remember
Aaron
like feeling
Kelly
so
was,
like, oh my God, I don't think Britain is moving at all, but I don't know why. Like, it's just coming out of me.
I didn't tell you, I'm moving from Teachable to Mighty Networks. Also the same time, Aaron Kelly, who you may know, a wonderful astrologer, past 13th reader, um, she did a solar return reading, and her big theme was move home and transfiguration. So like these themes were both coming. That's just the coolest thing.
I
It's just
know,
the
that is the most
coolest
literal.
thing. And that's why
Yeah.
I love obviously I love my own divination. I regularly pulling cards. I pull cards before I do basically everything. um,
Wow.
but I just love connecting with those whose channels I really trust, and then finding out that I'm getting very similar information. It's just like, well, there you
Yeah.
go. Okay. Um, Following the
Yeah.
omens. I'm
Yeah.
curious to talk with you about the word omen. Um, and I'm curious in different languages. I don't know how many languages you speak. Do you feel like it has different meanings? And are there
Oh
like
yeah.
different words with different
Um
resonances?
yeah, I think I mean it is a Malayan language. I think it's more like omens are kind of like equated to signs, right? And um I think when people think about omens, people feel like it's a bad omen for some reason. Like even in
Hmm.
English language, like I think omens can sound like this, like, oh, it's an omen, you know? It's
Uh-huh.
like it feels like, you know, the image that comes to my mind, like when I was growing up too, when we like think about the word omen um and it was sort of like it's almost something that is bad, right? Um, and so, but maybe that's just part of like the hidden nature of like people who are trying to get into like an omen sort of like work, I guess. Um, it's part of like the clouds. But I was like, yeah, I feel like it's kind of like for me, it just feels like, oh yeah, it's part of like the sign, kind of like how do you kind of measure kind of like the weather or like thinking about like the weather system or like what is about to come, right? If you see like, you know, there's dark clouds coming, you're like, all right, it's gonna rain, right? You know, that is also kind of like an omen kind of like feeling too, in a way. But yeah, like in my own language, if, for me, there's not one that is particularly like omen. It's more like, yeah, signs, like, you know, we're just looking at the
Hmm.
signs. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
this, yeah, the signs. And um, in your work with other human beings, how do you navigate sharing omens that some part of you is aware that there might be contraction or fear that could come up, but it
Hmm.
feels like do you think of it as a quote unquote bad omen, or is there like another way to describe that weather pattern? How do you work with that?
Oh yeah, I think yeah, I'm like I can be such a like a truth teller. I feel if it's gonna be difficult, right? I will be like I'll like kind of like inform them like, hey, this feels a bit difficult. I don't know why, like, and I think and I will like so almost like tell them, especially like in a more kind of like prophetic work or even like just analyzing people's transit or things like that. Um Yet at the same time it's always sort of yeah, like telling them it's not necessarily like as we know, like the malefics are quote unquote bad, but is it all bad? All right, kind of thinking. And so it's always about like how I help them to kind of like think about those things that are about like, or even prepare them a bit more so we can think about omens as a method of like preparation. So if we think about, even in ancient you know civilization and things like that, like people and the Egyptians, they do used to like look at the Sirius as sort of like indicator of like the Nile, the flooding of the Nile and things like that for their crops and things like that, right? So if we think about like the historical use of it, it's kind of like part of attuning to a certain kind of like the natural rhythms of life where there would be ups and there would be downs. And as a omen translator, it's kind of like it's part of my role to be truthful about it, but at the same time, it's not like I'm just gonna leave you in the desert kind of thing, right? Yeah, yeah,
Omen translator.
yeah.
I love that phrasing. Yeah, helping someone like move through a a picture of the omen invitation.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, like I've had like people, for example, like I have a tarot card. I mean, I have an oracle card that sometimes people get, which I think that card always comes up for some reason as like a not say like it's almost like a difficult part, like or like people feel like, oh my god, that's bad, right? Like so, there's this one card in my oracle card that says stormy, and then there's this image of like a storm, and the ship is like kind of like in the middle of the storm, and we can think about that as, yeah, like, that there might be something that sort of like throws you off. Like, maybe there's and maybe sometimes these are the kind of things that where like we are attuned to like our own power, I guess, in a way. It's a question of like, how do we handle, um, our sense of power with the natural rhythm, as well as kind of like how do we believe in ourselves to navigate with our own agency to work with and collaborate with the natural rhythms and the storms of life in a way too, right? um and so yeah, whenever people get those cards, it's always interesting for me to kind of like think about it like with respect to like whatever other cards they have, for example, um to help them through the storm in like the multiple perspectives that one can bring to it. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, my brain was like picturing how frustrating, inconvenient, um, exhausting a storm could be, but then like on the other side of it, you don't know because you were blown off course, you land in this other place and like
Exactly.
thank goodness you went through that, you got off course from the storm because it led
Yeah.
you to, it's like so Jupiter and Wheel of Fortune to me.
Yeah, it's very Jupiter, and yeah, exactly, the Wheel of Fortune, right? And um like we truly don't know why, like, certain things sort of like happen to us truly in a way. And sometimes we might not know why. Like I think there's like some sort of like limits to whatever that is revealed to us, right? It's like, okay, like this makes sense for now, but then like later on, it ends up being like something important that sort of like be part of your story or something like that, right? You know, and I think I'm such a Sag because I feel like I do like when I knew I was a Sag rising, I think it's such a storyteller thing. It's like, oh yeah, like that happened to me, but then that ended up becoming like a springboard for something else, or it becomes part of an important story of my own pivot and things like that. And I think those are the kind of like stories that people actually relate to in their own lives, right? Where there always to be this moments where, oh yeah, like something like bad or shitty and all the negative things happen to them, but it ends up rerouting them or putting them on a different place and a relationship with themselves. Yeah. And I think the purpose of a diviner, especially so, especially in a, and I think that is part of like the kind of like the work also, because I think as diviners, part of our work is at the threshold, right? We're kind of like the people, the way showers, the guide, um, at a particular threshold of life, and we're kind of just like telling them like, yeah, this is an option for you. This is the other option. Like you're still free to do whatever you want in a way. Like to to help them remember of their agency, but like we can also counsel them, or giving them advice in some other ways as well. So yeah, there's always a it's a very interesting balance, but then I do enjoy that work, like yeah, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, between the Sag transmission that I just did for Living Emergence, and then I also did like a Welcome to Sag video for my Emergence Astrology Year 2 group. And I was
Mm-hmm.
reading from the chapter I Sag in my book, and I was like bawling, crying because I just connect so much to Sagittarius. I don't have any personal plans in Sag, but it is my ninth house. And so it kind of
Yeah, it
had
is.
me feeling into like how, as a teacher, um, and as a student, like that is really like, it just feels so good to be in Sagittarius energy. And this, what you're saying here really brings up for me how unhelpful shame is in living emergence with divination and omens, because if we're so worried that we're going to make a bad choice or a wrong choice because we like struggle to trust ourselves, or we struggle to think that we're struggling with like, if I don't make a good choice then I'm bad or something, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Then that makes it harder to follow what the spirit wants to do, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I think and if you think about Sagittarius too, which is sort of like, you know, the imagery, even in a lot of like the historical texts we talk about, like Sagittarius is one of those signs which is kind of like part human, part beast, you know? There's this kind of like idea where you are like you should be trusting your intuition and instinct, and sort of just like, all right, it's kind of like about this balancing, like you can't just have making good choices, which for me, like good choices sounded very much like, you know, the human self is trying to control, right? um in a way, but then yeah, there's this the beast part of like Sagittarius inherent to it, that's like, no, like we're both going there. You know, we're both making choices together, right? And the beast has its own wisdom, um in terms of like perhaps making quote unquote bad choices, or perhaps making like unconventional, or just sometimes purely to kind of experience something too, right? I think something about Sagittarius that is also inherent is also about going through their own personal experience. And I think then that's how we get Capricorn, where we kind of like, okay, we've learned our lessons, right? But then the lessons need to be go through first. for it to be truly learned, right, in a Saturnian kind
Hmm.
of way, right? When the lessons is in the Sagittarius aspect, right? And you just have to move through it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious if you have certain decks that you think are particularly generous with um, omens.
Oh, wait, like a Oracle or Tarot decks, you
Well,
mean?
yeah, yeah, like the ones that you most trust for
Oh, yeah, I do
creating the
have,
omens.
yeah, I have one, I have the Marcella Kroll, the Sacred Symbols Oracle. I love that one. This one.
Mhm. Yes, totally. Hmm.
Yeah, this one I somehow always use her. Like she and recently she this deck was like showed up for me. There was a symbol of the Ankh that showed up, and I and usually what I do is like I always put, whenever I get a symbol from an important deck, I just put it on top of it, and then even when I don't close it, I just let it open, just put it on, like, amidst of all the other decks I have. And I just like let it sit there and let it simmer and kind of like inside of me. But the Ankh one was really important for me as of recent. I mean, you would know because of what I was up to, but it's sort of like when I was leaving from New York, I had this one of my best friends. When I was in grad school, Lacey, she went to Egypt, and on the day before I left New York, she gave me an ankh, like a pendant of an ankh. And I was like, and I don't use that symbol as that many times because I know how sacred it is in some way. But also it's kind of like, oh yeah, like like I only just let it show up to me during important moments. And then yeah, this recently during Scorpio season, like I was wearing it and went to like a party thing, and I was had a great conversation with my friend before that about certain kind of like life decision. And then like 1 week after, I was using the Sacred Symbols Oracle, and obviously the card that I got was the Ankh, and I was like, the new life is coming at me, and I'm like, it's really loud. And sometimes, like, there's also this part with omens where, and sometimes it's too loud, you're kind of just like, okay, okay, relax, because for me it's like can get overstimulated too, right? You're like, it's like, okay, okay, I get it. Like, it's like I know
Yes.
this I know what this is about, but I need to like regulate myself as a human being as well. And like obviously I already got excited with things like that and things like that. But then I was like, okay, like, parts of me that really is excited about it and things like that. I was like, all right, really rushing and really calls for like this kind of like a lot of things, like a lot of emotion, like you feel hyped up in a way. But then there's also other parts of me that like, all right, like I know this is to be true, and I know these are one of those moments. And I think as a person who's like very intimate with like this process of like receiving and like metabolizing almost like those omens in your body and in your kind of like your whole system, it's one of those things that which are like very exciting. I feel like it's very exciting process. And you become like, I feel like you become more trained and more fluent and mastery over kind of like these things when they happen, right? Do you feel that
Yes.
way too?
1000%. Yeah. It's a process of cultivating trust with, I think, within
Hmm.
and trusting show all these things that are showing up outside of you, that
Yeah.
like it's all connected. I like how efficient that we get these signs so that we
Yeah.
don't have, because our lives could take us in infinite number of directions. So it's just really
Hmm.
helpful to have these omens that help just cut the energetic like heaviness of choice out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like, oh, there it is. Okay, I'm not going to waste my time wondering about this.
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
um yeah, every day of writing Living Astrology, I would pull a card to show me the energy and a card to show me the focus of that particular section. And
Mhm.
I just followed directions. Because otherwise I would could just sit there like, how do I enter? You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think having
Exactly.
Mercury in Pisces, I don't know, like there's so many ways to enter in an ocean. So,
Yeah, the multiplicity of it, right? And when
mhm.
you would say like, knowing the answer or like knowing the direction, it's kind of like the Eight of Wands kind of thing too, right? It's literally that. Like the Eight of Wands is a card that it's like it's not waiting for anyone. It's like the swiftest card in the tarot. I would argue that it is one of the very, and that's why like I think Mercury has a decan, that is a Mercury decan. So even though it's detriment in Sag, but it is still kind of like co-ruled by the mercurial force through the face of it, to the decan lord of Mercury. So there's some sort of like the swiftiness of Mercury actually is really beneficial to the first part of the Sagittarius, which is like the beginning part of the sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like that's what Omen does, right? It sort of like invokes your spirit, like, okay, like we're changing the plan, or this is the new plan, or this is kind of all right, we're doing this now. And you're like, oh my God.
Woo!
And enjoy the ride, right? And I think yeah, like for people with like and this is why like I feel like part of it is I remember watching this reel, someone said that like the universe will never bring you to the wrong way, even though it feels like it's the long way.
Aha. With the
Yeah.
Capricorn moon, that feels very true. It's like I'm at midlife, it took to midlife.
Yeah. So it's like it's like it's never the wrong way. It's just a long, like it's just giving you the long way, which
The
is kind of
long
interesting that you're
way.
referring to like the Capricorn moon, which for me feels like an exile placement kind of like experiences, right? Where like um if you think about exile or even fallen as being at the opposite end of their places of domicile or exaltation, it's kind of like, oh yeah, like of course, it's like they have to like they have to go to the other side to get back to themselves in a way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
took a long time, but it feels so good to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You are going to be leading our first member-led workshop in Living Emergence. I was wondering if you could talk about it.
Oh
What are we going to
yeah.
do together?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna be speaking about a lot more on omens, as we're speaking through this podcast too, and the multiple pathways of omens, right? The multiple types of it, and maybe people can also process their own omens, because I think there's almost like I think people would benefit from like the sacred witnessing of like their own omens becoming true, right? And I think that is kind of like how you like multiply and fortify that faith even more, um kind of like the Sag way. And I think like the reason why Sagittarius have that like wild belief in a way, it's because it's true. Like it's like they have lived through it. And so they believe it, right? It's kind of like, and so I think that will be part of the workshop that I'm intending to. So yes, like everything omens, I feel. Yeah.
It's going to be so fun. As you said that, I was thinking about, yeah, like kind of moving through. I think we as humans have to move through a process of like allowing everybody else's omens to be their omens. Like, sure, it would be nice to like, that's a fascinating omen that so and so has, that's guiding them towards this experience with their spirit. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, like thinking about other people's the omens that's bringing them into whatever, like a successful business or something. Like
Hmm.
that is to miss the omens that are right in front of me. Um, and so I think there's something about staying with your omens
Oh
that
yeah.
allows you to just like stay in your path, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Um, it's also that's also to me very efficient because uh, our conditioning around comparison and competition, which is, it's not our fault, but it is massively it's such an energy loss. It's not fun for us on a soul level.
Hmm.
It's very sad to be in comparison and competition all the time. And so I
Yeah.
feel like getting into your own omens, is
Yeah.
like a way to repair. That's actually super fun and magical.
It is. It is one of those like most literal and direct way to interface of like this magical life. I feel it's like, oh yeah, it's like this where you're in alignment and in conversation with the universe in multiple ways, and you kind of like you write your own story, and also in it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Shahir, for coming back to Moon to Moon. Can't
Oh my
wait
God,
for the
thank you,
workshop.
thank
Is
you
there
for
anything
having
else you want to
Britten.
share with listeners about stuff you've got coming on? When are you gonna do Prophecy Portal again
Oh
on
yeah,
Oak?
I was about to say that. Obviously, December is my high time for Omen. So yeah, I'll have the Prophecy Portal 2026 coming up in
How
December.
many do you do maximum?
It depends. I always just like tap into energetically. It hasn't the number hasn't arrived yet for me, but yeah. But usually I've done a like when I was just like looking back, that was a year I did 20.
That's a lot.
And that was the first year I did audio recording, and I knew that it worked.
Yes, it really
Yeah.
does work. I listen
Yeah.
to it honestly in the bathtub at least once a month to like reconnect to it, and it's super soothing and it's extremely magical and
Thank
it's very
you.
alive. So as soon as you announce how we can reserve, I will be doing that again.
My
Claiming my
pleasure. It's
spot
my honor.
immediately. Um, yeah, anything else you want to share about anything going on or how to work
No,
with
nothing
you?
much. I'm still doing like regular astrology consultation for like birthdays. And for some people they do like a check-in, like a 40-minute check-in or something like that, astrology or tarot. So yeah, that's kind of like my rhythms right now. And if anyone has like any fun projects that they want me to be included or something like that, feel free to reach.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like,
Say it.
yeah. It's like
Amazing.
this is like my manifestor self is like telling the world, informing.
Yeah, you recently were in a conference.
Yeah, yeah. And I was talking about the Jupiter moon conjunction and about belonging, because I call it like the belonging conjunction. And that was really fun. And that, I think if listeners want to, I think they can purchase. They haven't released the recordings yet, I think. But people can buy that once they actually like, release it. But it's basically on the observation of the moon and Jupiter conjunctions that we've had. We've had plenty now, since the new moon in Cancer, and it sort of like culminates to the full moon in January. So that would be part of the storytelling. So there's something about that belonging story to different things that comes up with the moon Jupiter conjunctions. Yeah, in Cancer. Yeah.
Dancing around my Mars.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost as if like there's always this cycle of like new themes or sometimes renewed things that comes up. And part of the lecture I was also talking about there's a theme of renewal in it because something about the nakshatra of that place where it's all happening, especially for the remaining of the year until next year before Jupiter gets into Leo. So yeah, it'll be exciting. Like for me, like even if someone can't afford or like they don't feel as interested in the lecture, just observe the moon in Cancer when it's co-present with exalted Jupiter in Cancer. There's something there magical that happens every single time. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just like always just
Mm.
calling people to like take notice of it. And
Yes. Yes. And that was one of the things you helped me with in that. I can't remember the name of the reading I recently did. It was kind of a transit
yeah,
reading.
the transit one, yeah, the transit transcendence one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that was very helpful. Because the prophecy portal is not astrology.
Yeah, that one is purely like tarot channeling, psychic, whatever I receive. Some people I get songs, so
Amazing.
I know. So that's why like I feel like I always attune that. Like I always love doing the prophecy portal because it almost shows up like each time I'm working through a particular client, it's almost like I'm also like amplifying different gifts, right? You know, there was someone that I kept like there was people that I will suddenly holding like a particular crystal, and I was like, I don't know why, but I'm like, I keep this crystal is coming to me, and maybe and then I describe something about the crystal, or sometimes with some people there will be like a particular topic that is really loud that is not even informed by the cards or anything. It just sort of like something that just sort of like crosses my mind, and I'm like, okay, we need to talk about this kind of thing. So it's one of those I think offering that really helps me to trust myself, I guess, even more with my own gifts, and that's why I love it because it's well received. And I'm like, yeah, and at the end I'll be like, I don't know what I just did, but I'm grateful for y'all that this is contributing to your life in the next year. Yeah.
Yeah, in my 2024 one, you were like, I don't know, but I think you need to start, or I don't know if you use the word need, but you'll be talking about teaching about money, and sure enough, I've got Underdog to Diva. Then that morphed into the Mystics Making Money 2-year series.
Wow. Yeah, see, like I think Britain is such a living emergence
I am
evidence.
living the prophecy
They're
portal.
living the prophecy portal. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom. And I'm so excited that you're in Living Emergence and that you're going to be leading the workshop in December.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shahir. Thank you for sharing your wisdom on divination and omens with Moon to Moon. I can't wait for your workshop on December 14th. Oh, my omens, happening inside of Living Emergence only for members. Listeners, if you are feeling inspired, I hope you will consider a prophecy portal reading from Shahir for 2026, but not before me, because I'm going to be the first one that claims mine. I'm not kidding. I would be super depressed if I missed out on that for 2026 because, as I've shared, I'm not exaggerating. I live in deep connection to my prophecy portal omens all year round, and I take it very fucking seriously. Maybe there's a lesson there, around. There's something with omens, I think, around in one hand holding deep seriousness and holding it lightly and playfully on the other. I think that for the inner doubter, there's something important about allowing some part of you to think it's bullshit. But on the other hand, it's like for the magic to work, We really have to entertain the possibility that it is full blown, as real as it gets. And in the mystical pathway that I teach in my spaces, we're always holding different things in each hand. We're embracing paradox because there's so much power in doing this. We just become people who can hold and have capacity for so much more feeling and experience the more we allow ourselves to hold contradiction and the complexity of paradox in everything that we do. All right, then. So, if you are interested in joining us in Living Emergence for Unshaming Your Chart, which is going to be kicking off December 17th, you do not have to be at the initiation. The replay will be shared. You can then take the next 3 weeks to do the initiation and dive into the pre-recorded library with your chart. Everything that you need to know about this class is at my website, and I'll be talking about it constantly in Instagram and in my newsletter. So if you want time to make this decision, there's a lot of resources to dive into. This class you can't find anywhere else. And then in January and February, those meetups are required because there's no replay after their happenings. It's all built around breakout groups. So you can fully do this class and not join the breakout groups, but your experience will be 1,000 times amplified if you join and sit in the vulnerability of being witnessed and witnessing others, because that is what actually fortifies the unshaming process and makes it happen so much deeper and faster. All right, then. I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Wishing everybody a beautiful December. Cheers.